Hello and welcome to Oh Hello Maker. Whether this is your first box or you've been crafting along with me for a while now, you're going to absolutely love today's tutorial, needle punching. Now, I'm sure you know what needle punching is, but for those of you who don't, it's a form of embroidery, very much like rug hooking. The tool which you'll be using has a long needle with a channel running down it. You then use a threader to pull yarn up through the needle and then through the eye of the needle. Then you punch the needle through specialist fabric called monk's cloth. The small holes in the fabric will hold the loops in place, so when you turn over your design, you'll find that it's all fluffy on that side, very much like the pile on a rug. I think punch needle looks like one of those crafts that's going to be really complicated to learn, but it really isn't. Once you get to grips with the basic technique, you're really going to speed through this design, trust me. It's going to be a lot quicker than, say, if you're embroidering it. It's worth noting that the tool is incredibly sharp, so please be mindful when you're punching the needle through the fabric. Watch out for those fingers. You will see that your pack contains 3 different size needles. Now we're going to be using the needle with the biggest hole because we're going to be punching with yarn. But later on, when you want to do your own designs, you can use a smaller needle and use embroidery thread instead. I really hope that learning punch needle will help you to unwind a bit and to give you some much needed you time. And if you do post anything on social, don't forget to tag me, Oh Hello Maker, and use the hashtag Oh Hello Maker box. I can't wait to see your beautiful creations. Right, let's get punching. Now the first thing that you want to do is get some tape, preferably some masking tape, and put it around all 4 edges of the monk's cloth, and this will stop your fabric from fraying. Then, using the template on page 8 in your instruction manual, you want to trace off the rainbow design onto some tracing paper and then transfer it onto the centre of your fabric. You will need to go over the design several times for it to transfer, and some of it might be easier to do by eye. You don't need to transfer the dots, they're just for visual reference. You'll probably need to go over the tracing again with a pencil, just so it's nice and clear. Then unscrew your embroidery hoop, put the smaller hoop underneath the fabric, and then pop the larger hoop on the top, and then tighten the screw a bit. Turn it over and pull the fabric all around so it becomes really taut, and then tighten the screw again. Then try flicking the fabric, it should sound like a drum. So you want to get the tool out of the box, obviously. Now, because we're using yarn for this project, you need to use the needle with the largest eye. Now, take your threader and insert it into the top of the needle. I find this bit a bit tricky and the threader misbehaves, so you might need to use a little pair of scissors just to tease it out. Okay, so once it's poking at the bottom, you want to get your dusky pink thread, pull it through the threader, and then pull the threader all the way up through the tool. Now you want to get your threader and poke it through the eye of the needle, then feed the yarn through the threader again, then pull it all the way through the eye of the needle, and then pull on the yarn from the bottom so you just have a very short amount, just a couple of centimetres of yarn coming out of the eye of the needle. Now set the gauge to 10, holding your tool very much like a pencil. You want the bevel facing in the direction that you're going to go. Then you position the needle at the bottom corner, and then you want to punch the needle all the way through, and then just pull out that little excess bit of yarn so it's nicely tucked at the back of the design. Then pull the needle up through to the front, and keeping the point very close to the fabric, move along about 5 millimeters. Then punch through to the back again. Keep working around the outline of the first arch. And if you turn the hoop over, you'll see the loops that it's creating on the underside. So this tool is really great because it's adjustable, meaning you can change the gauge, and therefore you can change the size of the loops. So the higher the number, the longer the needle, the larger the loops. Then when you've gone round the entire outline of that first arch, You want to start stitching another row just inside. Now, if you alternate the stitches or stagger them, this creates a really lovely effect. Keep spiraling your way around the arch, twisting the hoop as you go, making sure the beveled hole is in the direction that you want to go. Then once you've stitched the whole arch and you've come to the centre, simply push the tool to the back of the fabric and snip off the yarn. Pull the pink yarn out of the tool, and now we're going to insert the brown yarn. Now, you might have seen in my printed instructions that I do mention that the brown yarn misbehaves a little bit. I think it's to do with the texture of it. It's not so smooth, and some yarns just don't play ball, and sadly this is one of them. So apologies in advance. Punch from the front to the back and pull out the little excess at the back. And then starting in one corner, as we did for the first pink arch, you want to punch through, move a few millimetres forward and then punch through again. But as you'll see here, the stitches just keep coming out, so you might just have to put your thumb onto a stitch just to keep it in place. Sometimes there'll be a little knot in the yarn that you can't even see, and that will stop the yarn from coming up through the punch needle. So check out for things like that. Now we're only going around the outside of this arch. We're not going to be filling it in with the brown, thankfully. Okay, so once you come to the end, snip it off at the back, take out the excess brown yarn, throw it to one side, you don't need to use that again, and then insert the green yarn into the tool. This time we'll be working from the back of the design. So you want to punch the tool from the back to the front to form a little dot of yarn. Then move the tool a few millimetres along and punch another dot. If the gaps in between the dots are too long, the yarn can pull out, so you can hold your thumb over the dot to keep it in place. Then keep punching until you've formed your next arch and snip off the excess at the back. You want to keep the tool loaded with the green yarn because we're going to be punching the outline of the thin arch next. So you want to miss out that thick one in between because that's going to be pink. I'm going to do that green arch. Now, as you can see, I didn't like the way it was going. It went a bit flat. So I simply pulled the stitches out and just restitched them into more of an arch. So once you've done the entire outline in green, you want to fill it in like we did with the first dusky pink arch, rotating the hoop and spiralling round to fill in that arch. You might find there's some gaps once you've finished. If there is, just snip it off at the back, reinsert it at that point, and do as many stitches as you need just to fill in a gap. I also thought that it needed a few extra stitches on the top. Okay, onto the pale pink now. So load your tool with pale pink as we did before. And we're working from the front again. And we're going to go all the way round that large arch. Okay, we're coming up to a bit of a fiddly bit here, so bear with me. We are going to be doing some very large zigzag style stitches across the large arch to fill it. So when you come to the end of the outline, Punch the needle back into the fabric at the bottom corner. You want to lift the needle up out of the fabric. You may need to put your thumb on the yarn to prevent it from coming out. Then making sure the beveled hole is in the direction of the stitch. You want to then move it across and reinsert it on the other side. Then you twist the needle again so the beveled hole is in the direction of the stitch. Pull it up again and then back down. It sounds more complicated than it is. I found the stitches were just coming out too much, so I twisted my hoop all the way round, so then I was able to use my left thumb to hold the stitches in place as I pulled the yarn back out. And actually this method works really well. You want to have the stitches really close together so you don't see any of the fabric underneath. Then if you look on the back, you'll see that sort of fluffy side appearing. Keep working your way all the way down the pink arch. Obviously, not this quickly. Feel free to pause it if you need to. And then punch through to the back and snip off the yarn. Keep your tool loaded with the pale pink. Punch around the arch that's just above the green arch. You won't actually see it drawn on my video. I was actually kind of designing this rainbow as I went. So once you've done the outline of that pale pink arch, take the yarn out and insert the dusky pink yarn into the tool. Now, as we were doing before for the green dots, we're going to be punching from the back again, this time to fill the entire arch with the fluffy loops. So we're going to be working from the back this time. So you can turn the hoop over and work on the back, punching within the pale pink outline. Keep turning the hoop over to the right side to see how it's looking. Then you can add some extra little loops in any gaps that you can see. And this just adds an extra bit of texture to your design, because quite a lot of it is the flat style of punch needle, but I think it looks really lovely when you mix up the two styles together. Okay, we're going to be doing some more little green dots again. So punching the tool from the back to the front, you're going to be forming those little dots of yarn again. Moving the tool along a few millimeters and then punching another dot. Remember, don't have the gaps in between the dots too large, otherwise the yarn can pull back out. As I mentioned before, I was kind of designing this as I was filming. So the next bit could have been done earlier. You want to load your tool with the pale pink and fill in the brown outlined arch. Or you can leave it empty if you want, entirely up to you. Now at this point, you might see some of the arches just need an extra few stitches. So you can simply unscrew the hoop, move the fabric, and add any extra stitches you need. Unscrew the hoop and adjust the positioning of the rainbow so it's right at the bottom of the loop. Tighten the screw back up and lightly pull on the fabric. You don't want it super taut like at the beginning, as this can move your design. Tighten again and then snip off the excess fabric. I'm using pinking shears, but you don't need to do that. Then if you've got a hot glue gun, add a little bit of glue to the inside of the hoop and pull up the fabric and stick it in place. You can use other glues such as fabric glue or PVA, but you'll have to hold these in place for a little longer for them to adhere. And there you go, a beautiful punch needle rainbow. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks so much for watching.